Hey, welcome back to Maximize Your Influence. On this channel, we talked about how to persuade, influence, motivate, even self-persuasion. Just finished a podcast on phubbing. If you don't know what phubbing is, go to the podcast, MaximizeYourInfluence.com, because phubbing hurts trust, hurts persuasion, hurts relationships, and you're probably doing it. I'm guilty at times too. Don't be a phubber. Anyway, hit like, hit subscribe. Appreciate you being here today. Everything you need is at MaximizeYourInfluence.com, from your persuasion IQ test to the free best-selling book, Maximum Influence. But let's take a deeper dive. Let's add to what we talked about on the podcast today. How do you detect deception? How do you spot a liar? I want to talk about 5 things you can do to spot a liar. I don't want you to become a better liar. Don't use these. But this is to spot a liar, to detect deception. There are 5 things. This time we're talking about verbal cues. Next time we're talking about non-verbal cues about detecting deception. How do you spot the liar? Let's talk about number 1. They use more words, okay? A lot more words are being used. They'll probably transfer to third party. They'll try to distance themselves a little bit. So you see a lot more words. You'll see them distance themselves from using the third party. And things like, even in sports, you'll say, we won versus they lost. We distance ourselves, just like we'll distance ourselves from the lies we are telling. Number 2 is bandwidth. It takes a lot more mental energy to lie, to invent things. So you'll see the rate maybe slow down a little bit. You'll see in their eyes that they're thinking a lot more, longer pauses to think things through, to make things up. That could be an issue. Number 3 is content. Some people just go way overboard, way too much detail. You're like, whoa, they weren't that detailed before. Or they're just really few details. Teenagers, where were you going? Out, who are you with? Friends, right? Very few details or way too many details. And you'll see a lot more vocal fillers like in this process. Remember the bandwidth, people are thinking it through. You're going to see this in these verbal cues. Number 4, nervousness. You'll hear it in their voice, a little more shaky. You might see a little more sarcasm, inappropriate humor. You'll just see some changes there in their voice. It might even go a little higher for some people because their nerves. They get nervous, and that changes how they act and how their voice sounds. Number 5, it sounds rehearsed. It sounds memorized. It sounds like they've thought it through in their mind before, which most people do. And you have to call them out on those type of things. You have to ask them questions that they were not prepared for. For example, teenagers again. Well, they went over to Sally's to study. Well, great. They're going to rehearse who was there and what they studied, right? That's what they do. Ask them a question to think about. What was Sally wearing? Not rehearsed. You'll get the long pause and you'll know that they are lying. So a couple other keys while we do this. Learn to listen with your ears, your eyes, and your heart. Don't be so concerned about vomiting where you're not reading someone's behavior or listening to their voice. Make sure you find their standard behavior. Meaning, before you start to persuade or influence or negotiate, talk about weather or sports, whatever you need to, just see how they normally act. Maybe they voice is normally high. Maybe they do talk slow, just normally. So you want to find that standard behavior. And the other key is you want to look for clusters. What does that mean? Just because they have a slow rate doesn't mean they're lying. Just because they have vocal fillers doesn't mean they're lying. Just because they're thinking a lot doesn't mean they're lying. But if they're doing all 3, ding, 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 they're probably lying. Look for those clusters. Again, don't use these to lie better. Use these to detect deception. So that's Maximize Influence today. Thanks for listening, and hit subscribe. Go to MaximizeYourInfluence.com. Appreciate you being here. Master these skills and go out and persuade with power.